another adventure today in search of a unicorn. On our last episode, we found one, a Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch. Well, today we're going up to the Cumming area and we're going to go to 3 places and see if we hit, strike out, come home with nothing. Well, we won't come home with nothing. We get a consolation prize if we don't find a unicorn. And at the end of the trip, we'll always tell you what we came home with. Let's go ride. Okay, well, we're going through the old part of Canton right now to get on Highway 20, which will take us over to the Cumming area. And the 3 stores that we're going to are not all that far apart, so it won't, once we get to the first one, we'll be able to get to the second and third pretty quick. So this may be a little shorter video than the previous one because we just don't have the time on the saddle we had when we were going down to Marietta, Kennesaw. So it's not easy to get to good audio inside of a motorcycle helmet because the motorcycle helmets are just not made for that. Hiding a microphone inside the helmet that doesn't interfere with your operation or cause you discomfort is quite a feat. So it's a nice day up in North Georgia. It's about 48 degrees. A little brisk on the bike. Not too bad though. We're layered up. We got our Triumph genuine clothing on. A couple good insulating layers. No electric clothing today. It's just not that cold. We're not going to be out that long. So we got really lucky on our last venture, and it was our first stop where we found a Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch. And I did the first pour series last night. We haven't posted it yet, but it'll probably be up before this one is. And I can tell you, it's absolutely worth the hype. Now, granted, Sazerac or Buffalo Trace, depending on which you want to call it, has done a really good job putting that in demand. And the fact that a couple of years ago the single barrel version of E.H. Taylor was Bourbon of the Year and written up in some food or wine magazine, something like that, travel magazine, and it made it just even worse to find it. It was already hard to find it 2 years ago, and it hasn't been any easier since. And the only thing I say that has changed recently is that Buffalo Trace products as a whole have been dropping in the North Georgia and Metro Atlanta area. I readily see Buffalo Trace available. It's usually 1 or 2 per customer. I've seen Eagle Rare at a half dozen places. Now granted, several of them are marking up the price. One in particular doubled the MSRP, but they're out there if you really want it, and if you hunt for it, you can find it at list price, like I did. Still not seeing any Blantons, and it's been a long time since I've seen Wellers. I saw Wellers around Christmas time. I should have picked me up a bottle or 2 of it then. I really didn't know much about it, so I just didn't buy it. If I haven't done any research or listened to reviews or done a little bit of like, what's the taste profile, what's the availability, how expensive is it, do people like it, do people think it's overrated? A lot of people think the Blantons is overrated. There's a lot of people that will buy Blantons just for the bottle, and let's get real, it is a really cool bottle. Now I want, if I had my way, I'd buy everything in the Buffalo Trace lineup, from Pappy's all the way down to Benchmark, and I'd have at least one of each, because I've always been a Buffalo Trace fan, and pretty much everything I've ever tasted coming out of the Buffalo Trace distillery I've liked. The E.H. Taylor is my absolute favorite product out of Buffalo Trace, followed by Eagle Rare, and then Buffalo Trace itself. Now, I've not tried Benchmark. That is their what I call bottom shelf product, but it is from the same mash bill, as I understand, that Buffalo Trace is. Because if it's labeled a Kentucky bourbon, it has to be 4 years old, and Buffalo Trace, typically what I've read, is usually 6 or older. So it's probably a 4-year-old bourbon that's not had a lot of extra care to it or finishing that the other products get. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if the Benchmark doesn't really have any finish at all. That, 4 years goes by, put it in a bottle. Well, we're here at our first location, Cumming Beverage Mart. Our camera kind of flaked out on us on the way here, so I won't have any more motorcycle footage to show you, which is probably kind of boring anyway. So we'll make the best of it, and we're going to go inside and see if we can find our unicorn at our first location, or we're going to strike out. See you in a minute. Okay, we didn't find any unicorns at this store. We did find an Eagle Rare, which is no longer on our unicorn list, for $41.99, which I thought was a pretty fair price. The only caveat is that you had to pick one of the other store picks on the barrels inside, so you were making at least another $40 to $60 purchase to get the Eagle Rare. So I think that's a bad thing. That they only had probably limited quantities. It's a good way to move other products, and you still get the Eagle Rare at a fair price. So struck out at this location. Let's get on to our next. Well, we're at our second stop, Georgia Liquor Barn. Our first stop had a nice selection of bourbons. They probably had a shelf, 8-10 feet tall, with bourbons for about 40 feet. And most of the fan favorites, a few ones I'd never heard of, but it seemed to be a nice store. Had a lot of good brands. The prices seemed to be very fair for some of the ones that I buy regularly. I will certainly go back if I was in the area. So let's go into Georgia Liquor Barn and see what they got, and we'll report back. Well, no unicorns at Georgia Liquor Barn, but we did find Buffalo Trace that was on sale, one per customer, and pretty much around $30. So that's nice that that's really coming back out again. They did have a Widow Jane 14, which is should be on my unicorn list, but it was kind of pricey, and I decided to pass on that right now. So strike two. So we're going to go on to our third location and see if we find something. I did find a local product called Legends that's made at a distillery here in Cumming, and it sounds pretty good. It is a local product, so we may end up with that as our consolation prize if we don't find a unicorn today. So let's get on to our next stop. Well, I was kind of confused at first. The GPS says I'm coming to Beverage World of Cumming, but the sign says Lanier Wine and Spirits. I guess they changed their name. They got like 4.5 stars out of 5, so I mean, not much of a place if you look at it from the outside. So I'm sure it's very nice on the inside, and so are the people. So we're going to go see if we can find a unicorn. We have 2 strikes, so if we get a third, then we have to find a consolation prize. See you in a minute. Well, 3 strikes and you're out. So no luck in our third stop at Beverage Mart of Cumming. It's really a small local type neighborhood store. Pretty small bourbon selection, so not a place I'd recommend when there's a couple stores that have much better bourbon choices just a few miles away. But you know, it did have a high rating, so we checked it out, and finding no unicorns, we had to purchase our consolation prize, which our rule is it has to be under $40. So I've been looking at an Atlanta distillery for a while called ASW, and they've had a product called Fiddler Unison, and I've been meaning to try it, and just every time I go and find a Unison, I always find something else I'd rather have. So this time I didn't find something I'd rather have, so I bought the Unison. So we're going to give this a first pour tryout. I've heard pretty good things about it. It is a medium priced bourbon, just under $40. And hopefully we can go head to head with some of our blind test we're going to be doing in future in mid-priced and high-priced bourbons. So we are glad you came with us today. We're sorry the camera crapped out on us, so we won't have a whole lot of other motorcycle footage to show you, but we will get this posted. One of the local residents, no doubt. We will get this posted, even though it'll be kind of maybe a low resolution video, but that doesn't matter because we completed our hunt today in the hunt of a unicorn, and none were found. So please like this video, and if you'd like to see more of this type of content, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.